Hey everybody, Eric Hayden here on YouTube. Finally getting to doing some fall pruning and deadheading in the garden. Kind of spurred on by my wife. She said, you got to get out there and do some deadheading. It's a real nice weekend here, a little cool, low 70s and breezy. So we're kind of deadheading, but the big thing we're doing more is pruning. Typically, you do a spring pruning to clean things up and stimulate the growth in the spring. And then you can do one in late summer or early fall for a couple of reasons. Number one, I do row shows. So by pruning the bushes back, it'll stimulate long canes. You can get rid of some of the growth, twiggy growth, canes that are crossed to prevent disease, to allow more air circulation and things like that. And here's a real good example. I didn't prune this on purpose, but it fell over an Isaias, and so I did some trimming of it. Here's a cut that I did about 6 weeks ago. And you can see the new cane that came out on Mr. Lincoln. This might be almost 2 months ago. So it'll stimulate growth and stimulate these long canes that I would want for the row show. However, this year there aren't any row shows because of COVID, so I've kind of just let things grow. I was kind of curious just to see how tall some of these plants got. But again, typically late summer, about the middle to end part of August, I'll do the pruning because our row shows are in October. This year, I mean, this hot princess is over 8 feet tall. Again, I was very, very curious to see how tall things got. But even though I don't have row shows, I'm gonna have to clean this up at some point, whether it's in the spring or doing it now. And I'm tackling it now because, as you can tell on this windy day, the bush really starts to get that rocking action. It's in the ground with roots, but the taller the lever is, in this case the canes, the more prone to rocking it is. So I'm kind of doing this as some maintenance. I've got to do it eventually anyway. And being that it's the beginning or middle part of September, I still have some daylight to have one more last good flush of blooms. Ideally, I would have done this probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I'm not too concerned with timing because there aren't any shows this year. I will say for you folks watching up north or that get harsh winters, again, you have to back this up much earlier because you've already had some frost. So you don't want to stimulate growth. We're still a couple months away, or at least a month and a half away of any of those issues. So I don't mind stimulating growth. So I'm going to clean up the garden. It will help with maintenance. I won't have to do this as much in the wintertime, but also now that we've just had a flush, the bushes themselves are pushing out again. You can see this new growth. So they're ready to go. We got a lot of rain. I put down some fertilizer, synthetic, kind of quick release. I don't want anything long term since we're approaching frost here in about a month and a half. So it's a good time to do a little maintenance. This is a nice rose there. It's Zach Noble's. That's the Sport of Let Freedom Ring. And I like how I have them right next together so you can see the difference. But what a beautiful rose. That is Let Freedom Ring. And again, next to it is the Sport of Let Freedom Ring, which is Zach Noble's. It's a little bit more of an orange to it. So we're doing the pruning. I'm showing you these beds now because they're so tall. You'll see the follow-up and the difference. We've already done these beds, mostly. I've got to hit some of those. This middle bed we definitely have done. And I'm sure you've heard all different things of pruning. You can see one of my prior videos about cutting on the cane with an outside butt eye, so you're directing growth. I didn't really worry about that this time. I'm sure there's plenty of videos out there, including one I did earlier. I pretty much treated it like a hedge. I don't have electric hedge trimmers, but just cut it to the at one level and then thinned it out a little bit. And you're going to notice some differences. This bush, silver cream, had some black spot on it, so it's looking not the best with not a lot of leaves. They'll come back, where something like this one here is looking a lot more leafed out, Mr. Caleb. So I'm going to wrap things up. We'll continue in the garden. I just kind of wanted to show you a before, and then we'll show you the after coming up. And again, it's going to vary on how much black spot you have or what the leaves look like. We just took this bush down by about 1.5 feet, double the light. And yes, there's some yellowing leaves in there, but you can see it's still very, very full. So it's looking really, really good. So I'm just lowering it for maintenance, lowering it so it doesn't rock as much in the fall and winter winds, because we get those quite a bit. Usually I go around the garden with a huge trash can or these smaller bins. These are the same bins I use to carry the compost in. I'm just trying something different this year. I'm just chucking them in the paths, and I'm going to come back with a rake. And so trying to do it kind of, you know, the same method over and over again, assembly line method, to be a little quicker. So hack, 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 just throw them out in the paths, and then I'll come back and rake up at once. So just to summarize, we're doing our pruning a little later. We don't have row shows, so I'm not too concerned. The benefits will be less rocking in the winter winds, tidies them up, and it helps with the disease resistance. You might say how? You're allowing more airflow. These bushes were almost touching each other, so now I have some nice airflow in between them. And then the bush itself, I could probably do a better job here in Maryland Monroe, but certain bushes like this have real sturdy, thick canes, and then they have a lot of puny canes. So by eliminating those, or at least thinning them out, you get more airflow and less disease in it. I will say most of these bushes are a couple years old. The ones that are not, like this Ring of Fire, I didn't really prune much at all. Maybe just took off the ends, more or less deadheaded, and you can see that spectacular bloom on that. It's one of the newer hybrid teas from Chris Greenwood. It's been around a couple years, but getting out into commerce more. So a newer bush like that, I just don't really hack at it much. It's depending on the bush itself. How mature is it? If it's something like that in the back, Mr. Caleb, it gets a good pruning, because not only has it been here 3 years, it has a lot of leaves. If it's missing some leaves because of black spot, then I won't prune it quite as harshly. So it just depends on what's going on. So hope everyone's having a good day. Hope you're enjoying the weather where you are. Finally feeling like fall here in Eastern North Carolina. Next video, we'll do a follow-up on how the garden looks. Should be much more tidy up, and then we'll be ready for our last flush of blooms here 5 to 7 weeks after now. So we're talking getting into the latter part of October. And I'll leave you with this gorgeous bloom. I've got 2 of these. If you are a fan of my channel for a while, scroll back and check out the maiden roses that I got last year. I got some this year, but I got some last year. This is from Steve Singer. This is Louise Estes. It was planted in the spring of 2019. You can see even pruned, it's still very, very vigorous bush, and you cannot beat that color. That pink, I hope it's showing up in the video, because it is outstanding. All right, folks, have a good one.